What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Draft Report. In today's video, we're going to be grading every NFL team's draft from rounds 1 through 7. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, as you can see here, the first team is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals. And just to give you how I did this, the first 3 rounds, any day 1 or day 2 picks will be graded and are in the big font. And then any of the day 3 picks are in the smaller font and did not receive a grade, but I'll still talk about them if there's some standout picks. And how I did the overall grade for every team is mostly your value comes from your day 1 and day 2 picks, and if you did something great in day 3, you get bumped up, but I'm not really going to knock you if you didn't have a good day 3 because you're just kind of getting the guys you like, and you know, I honestly didn't watch a ton of the guys from day 3, so I'm not going to act like I know a bunch about these guys. So I basically didn't factor it in much unless I felt like someone really got a steal or had a good day 3. But anyways, we start here with the Bengals, and I really like Myles Murphy for them with the first pick. They need a pass rush presence. Yeah, they have Trey Hendrickson, but outside of that, no one can really get after the passer. And they need a guy like that off the edge, and Murphy just has everything. He's huge. He's like 275, runs fast, has good bend for his size, converts speed to power pretty well. He just doesn't have the elite. He doesn't have many moves in his toolbox right now, but he'll get there. And I think this is a potential play, and he'll be a rotation guy year 1, but in the future we could see him being a very key part of this team going forward. And then the second round, they got DJ Turner, who was my 39th ranked prospect on my big board, and they got him at 60, so that deserved an A from me. Turner just super fast. I think he ran in the 4.3s at the combine. Might have been the 4.2s. I know is the fastest time at the combine for the 40, and he does possess some man skills that are decent as well. And then their third round pick was Jordan Battle, who coming from Alabama, he moves pretty well, and his IQ is very good. So he could be a versatile guy. Maybe play slot, maybe play box safety. Can kind of move around. But his man coverage skills are just lacking. I just don't think his technique is there as of now, and his hips are a little slow. But he moves pretty well in space and can be a decent safety for them to kind of replace Jesse Bates. And then they didn't really do much in the later rounds of the draft that impressed me. Chase Brown will be a solid RB2 or 3, but I just don't see him being a true like bell cow number 1 or anything. And then outside of that, just some depth pieces. Nothing really impressed me there, but they get an overall B+. They did good for what they had, didn't do anything amazing, but they just had solid picks. So next up we go to the Baltimore Ravens, who only took 6 players in this draft, but with the 6 they did take, they did a very good job. At 22 they got Zay Flowers, who was my number 2 receiver in the class. Very tiny, like 5'9", but he's got some good size to him. He has good contact balance, good after the catch, pretty good hands, and he just gets open, and he's a dynamic player in space. He could be like a Debo at 5'9". You put that with Lamar, it could get scary on some read options or some trickery, and he knows how to get open. He can catch. He's just a reliable guy in the slot that they didn't really have. Bateman's always hurt, and the OBJ signing was good, but he's going to be an outside guy, and again, who knows how long he'll stay healthy for. Flowers will just be a solid contributor. I don't think he'll ever put up 1,500 yards or anything, but he's just a solid slot, and I liked that pick, especially value-wise. He was my 25th ranked on the big board, and you got him at 22. It's a position in need. I liked that pick. And then at 86, in the third round, they get Trenton Simpson, who was my number 1 linebacker in the class. Simpson just, he is super athletic, good size, just doesn't really know how to play the linebacker position yet, but I think with good coaching, he can get there. And you get a guy that's that athletic at 86. It wasn't really a position in need because you had Patrick Queen and Roquan, obviously, but Trenton Simpson actually reminds me a lot of Roquan, or of Patrick Queen, I mean, and Patrick Queen hasn't really panned out for them, so if you can get Trenton Simpson to be what you thought Patrick Queen was going to be, you pair that with Roquan, that's the best linebacking core in the league, so maybe outside of the Niners. But anyways, In the seventh round, they got Andrew Voorhees, who I really like that pick. Pre-tearing his ACL at the combine would have been a third or fourth round pick, and you get him in the seventh. I mean, who knows? He might never do anything for you, but he definitely has the chance to, after he heals from his ACL injury, maybe start or be a rotational guard, tackle, versatile. So I just like that pick. You get a guy in the seventh who could definitely play if he comes back healthy. So they got an A minus. Again, only 6 picks, only two picks in the first 3 rounds, but they killed it when they did pick. Next up is the Steelers, who many people have as the winner of this draft. I really liked what they did in this draft as well. Obviously, giving them an A plus overall. But the one problem I had is the first pick. They went Broderick Jones, who I'm a fan of him. He has potential, but he was my 26th ranked prospect. You trade up for him at 14, and I thought he was the fourth best tackle in this class. And again, you trade up for him. Actually, he was my fifth best tackle. So he's a good run blocker right now, and he's super athletic for a tackle, but the pass blocking is just not there, and you want someone to protect Pickett. That's the whole idea. But I think for this scheme, they're going to try to run it with Najee more, so this will help. And then at 32, they get probably not the steal of the draft, but one of them. They get Joey Porter Jr., my 15th ranked prospect, my number 3 corner. They get him in the second round at 32. Can't write it up better than that. His dad played for them. He's going to play for them. Perfect pick for them. They needed a corner. And that's another thing. At 14, they traded up. I thought they were going to get Gonzalez, who was my number 1 corner in the class, number 4 overall prospect, and you pass on him to go Broderick Jones, who you might have been able to get if you didn't trade up. And I don't think he's this elite talent that you need to trade up for, but whereas Gonzalez was. So that's why I got a B for the Broderick Jones. A plus for Porter, obviously. Keanu Benton, they were 9th or 8th in run defense last year, so I don't think it was a huge need. But Benton is probably the best run stuffer in this class, maybe behind Mozzie and Jalen Carter, maybe. But Keanu Benton's just an elite run stopper. But he just doesn't have much in his pass rush arsenal right now. But I think he can get there. And with Benton, you get a guy that's going to be able to play day one, which is huge for them. You can always use defensive linemen, just rotate him in. So he'll be solid. I gave that a B plus. I like Benton. I don't know if it was a huge need. And then Darnell Washington, another steal of the draft. He was my number 40 prospect, and with Washington 36. He was at the combine. He destroyed. He's like 6'6", can hurdle dudes, as we saw in the Oregon game. Not the best receiver, obviously going to be more of a blocker, but it gives you the ability to run more 12 personnel, which I think will help for Najee and opening up that play action game, because Freiermuth is not the best blocker, but he's a great receiver. So you get Washington, who's more of that hybrid type, more focused on blocking, but can definitely be an option in the receiving game. And then in the 7th round, they got Corey Trice, who I thought was going to go in the 4th or 5th. Really good size and length and athleticism. Obviously doesn't have the technique that you'd like to see for like a first-round guy or anything, but I really thought he would have gone in the 4th. He was sitting up there on the best player available for a while, and they scoop him up late 7th. So I thought that was a great pick for them. So they get an A+. Definitely a top draft class this year. They got a steal at almost every pick. And Joey Porter and Darnell Washington, just huge steals for me. And then we go to the Cleveland Browns, who, again, kind of like the Ravens, they didn't have many picks, but they did a very good job with the picks they had. Cedric Tillman, I wasn't a huge fan of this pick, B-. I don't think they needed receiver, and they could use receiver, but they trade for Elijah Moore. You have Donovan Peoples-Jones. You have Amari Cooper. Do you really need to waste your first only pick in the 2nd round? I guess it was in the 3rd round with receiver. I don't know, but he'll be solid. He has good size. Tillman has good hands. He just needs to develop some routes, and I think they can develop into that. He has the body you want for a true X, which almost no one in this class does. So, at his true potential, he can be definitely a number 1 for a team, but I don't know if he'll get there. And then I really love their pick at 98, Siaki Ika. The Browns, I think we're last in the league in run defense. If not, they were up there. They were just getting killed by the run, and you get just an absolute mammoth of a human. He's like 340, but he'll just clog the lane. And they needed a presence like that up the middle to just stuff the run and force teams to actually throw the ball and not just run it all the way down the field. So I really like that pick. And then my favorite, I think the steal of the draft, number 111, DeJuan Jones. He was my number 4 tackle in the class, number 24 overall, and you get him in the 4th round. I would have liked to see him start day 1 for a team, but he probably won't in Cleveland, but can definitely fill in if there's an injury and should start in the next couple years. He's just massive, super long arms, can just anchor. His run blocking leaves a little to be desired, but as a pass blocker, he's just so big. He's so hard to get around. I just really loved him as a pass blocker. I would have taken him in the 1st, and they get him in the 4th. So great value there. And the other pick, Luke Weipler, was the number 4 center in the class, and they got him in, I believe, the 6th round. So great value there. He could start. He probably won't start day 1, but definitely has the potential to get some snaps if there's injuries. And the Browns get an A. They only had 6 picks, only 2 third rounders, but they did a great job with the picks they had. And the Vikings here, I really like the Jordan Addison pick. I think he's just another guy knows how to get open. He's tiny, but with Jefferson, you don't need another X receiver. So Addison can just be Kirk Cousins' kind of security blanket almost, and just get open over the middle of the field, run little slants. Addison's just solid, and I like that pick. Mekhi Blackman, not a huge fan of that pick. Round 5 or 6 value, and you reach on him in the 3rd, but it's whatever. His technique's just not there. He's got the speed and the length to be decent. He just the technique was not there for me. So C minus for that pick. And they didn't do Jacqueline Roy could be a rotational piece. He's a solid run stuffer, but outside of that, nothing huge in this draft that really stood out. The Jordan Addison pick was good, so B minus, just kind of an average draft. But Jordan Addison, Mekhi Blackman, they'll be pieces that contribute for sure. And then next, probably the most interesting draft here, we have the Detroit Lions, who had 6 picks between day 1 and day 2 combined. And how I think you have to think of their draft is just take away the numbers and look at the 6 players. Actually, we'll take out Broderick Martin. Look at the top 5 players. If you take out the pick number and you told Lions fans you're coming away with those 5 guys, they'd be happy. If you told them you took Brian Branch at 12, Hendon Hooker at 18, Jahmyr Gibbs at 34, and Jack Campbell at 45, and Laporta at 68, they'd be ecstatic. That'd be a good draft. Hendon Hooker would be a reach there, but either way, it's just a weird draft because Brian Branch, my number 10 prospect, Hendon Hooker, my number 49 prospect. You get huge steals there, both positions of need for them, but then you reach on Jahmyr Gibbs, who I liked him. He's my number 16 prospect. I had a first round grade on him. Taking him at 12 was crazy to me. Especially when a guy like Gonzalez was still there, it just didn't sit right with me. Same with Jack Campbell. That got an F, as you see there. That was a horrible pick. He was my number 3 linebacker in the class, and you get him at 18. Like, you could have easily got him in the 2nd round. I think it was just poor asset management, but you get Brian Branch, who's going to be great. Again, my number 10 prospect, just can play everywhere. Such a good tackler for his size. So versatile. But the problem is he's kind of like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who they signed, so that's going to be kind of weird. But either way, the more of guys like Brian Branch you can get, the better. Hendon Hooker could potentially fill in for Jared Goff if he looks good in practice and stuff. I wouldn't recommend it, but, solid quarterback. The Laporta pick was horrible to me because Michael Mayer was sitting there, and you take another tight end over him. Michael Mayer, my number 1 tight end, I had him at number 19 in the class. And you take a tight end over him who I didn't have in my top 50. It's just a tough look. Broderick Martin, I didn't love that one either. You trade up for him, and he was probably a 5th or 6th round pick, but again, not going to kill you over a 3rd round pick. But the Lions draft was just weird. I had to give them a C minus just because the asset management, but they got lucky that Branch fell to them. Without that would have killed him. But overall, just a very weird draft. You just have to look at it without seeing what pick they took him at, and it actually doesn't end up looking as bad. But just not a fan of how they use their picks. So next we go to the Packers, who I don't love their draft. They just kind of have a type, they they like getting these athletic big guys like Lucas Van Ness, and it just doesn't end up working out for them. Um, Van Ness is solid. I mean, he just doesn't have anything in his bag. He just bull rushes every time. Um, he was my number 34 prospect. I don't see the major upside that some teams saw, especially taking him at 13. Again, Gonzalez was there. You didn't need corner, but when a top 5 player in the class, according to me, is there, I'd just take him, best player available. Luke Musgrave, I really like that pick. They needed a tight end, and they get who, in my opinion, was the 4th best tight end in the class. They took him ahead of Washington, but I think for them, Musgrave was probably maybe 2 behind Kincaid. They needed a receiving threat for Jordan Love, and Musgrave is going to be that. Super athletic, just a solid receiving tight end. But that was really the only pick I liked for him. Jaden Reed, just tiny. I really didn't understand that pick because Jaden Reed, you could have gotten Josh Downs, who same mold of a player as Jaden Reed. Um, you could have also taken Jalen Hyatt, who I liked, but you take Jaden Reed, who's 185, probably wouldn't have gone in on day 2. He's just gonna be a slot guy, and Josh Downs was in my top 50 prospects at 48. Um, and could have provided more as a slot guy, kind of the same build. So I didn't get that pick. And then Tucker Kraft, you reach on a tight end who is going to be 4th or 5th round, and you already took one at 42. So I feel like you could have done something better there. Colby Wooden will be solid out of Auburn, but outside of that, nothing really on day 3 that impressed me a ton for the Packers. Um, Lou Nichols could do something out of Minnesota. Grant Dubose, I actually like that pick. Charlotte receiver, good size, good speed. He could do something. But nothing to blow you away there. So we go to the Bears. In their first round pick, I really hated what they did. You have Jalen Carter sitting there. You have my number 1 prospect in the class. You have what almost everyone views as the best talent, and you trade down 1 pick to get Darnell Wright. And I mean, I get it with the character concerns and stuff with Carter, but I think at 9, you almost did the perfect draft. You almost had the first pick. You almost had the first pick and traded down to 9, got all that value they did from the Panthers, and still got your number 1 prospect, but they didn't do it. I was so disappointed when they did that. But you get decent value. You gain a 4th, and you get Darnell Wright, who I would have taken Skoronski over as well. But, Darnell Wright is huge. He's a good pass protector and has value and run. He's super athletic for his size, but the scheme is a little weird because they clearly are a running team. Um, and I think Darnell Wright's a better pass protector, but I didn't like that they passed on Carter. And then Gervon Dexter Jr. or Senior from Florida with their 2nd round pick. I liked that pick. Dexter's huge and an athlete, just didn't provide much at Florida. He's going to need coaching, and that's the same thing with Zach Pickens down in that 3rd round. But I didn't like that they took basically the same molded player with Zach Pickens as Gervon Dexter, but whatever. You get 2 guys. Hopefully, you can develop one of them. If one of them hits, they're going to be a good run stopper. Either way, Tyreek Stevenson, I really liked that pick for them. Stevenson, just lengthy, fast. He has tight hips, and his technique is lacking a little bit, but I think any team would love to develop him. You get him at 56. I like that value. Day 3, Roschon Johnson, going to be a solid running back out of Texas. You kind of needed a running back with Montgomery leaving. Khalil Herbert's good, but I don't know if he can truly be the number 1, so you get a little change of pace guy with Roschon Johnson. And then Tyler Scott's very good value. I thought he would go in the 3rd, and you get him at, I think, 5th round. So good value there. He was Cincinnati's number 1 and was a good receiver for Ritter while he was there, so I like that pick. Noah Sewell, early in the draft process. Like, if you look a year back at, like, way too early mocks and stuff, he was going in the 1st round. Disappointed at Oregon, but he is an athlete. I believe he was a former 5-star. So you get a guy that's that athletic. You can develop him, and he has the potential to be something really good. So I like that pick. We go to the Bills. They get a B plus. They only had 6 picks. I didn't love what they did on day 3, so nothing blew me away there. So really only 3 picks that went into my grading. And Dalton Kincaid, was just a weird pick to me. You get him at 25, and he was my 22 prospect, but the scheme fits just a little weird. You have Dawson Knox, but I think I heard they're going to try to use him as like almost a Skoranek, like fullback kind of mold and slot receiver, which I kind of I'm getting the idea because he can just be kind of an oversized slot guy. Because he gets open well, he's athletic. He's almost a receiver. His blocking skills are very bad, but as a receiver, he's really good. So maybe use him as a little slot guy. I kind of like that. And then Osiris Torrance was a huge deal for me. My number one guard. I had him as my 23 prospect on my big board, and you get him at 59 and a position of need as well. That might be the best pick of the draft outside of DeJuan Jones. And then Dorian Williams. With Williams, he's got good size, good movement skills. His technique's just not there. He doesn't have the IQ. He doesn't read plays very well, but I think if you develop that, you get him with a guy like Matt Milano who knows what he's doing. You could have something special in Dorian Williams. So I liked that pick value-wise. Didn't really need a linebacker, but B plus draft for them. Again, had not many picks, but they did good with the picks they had, I felt. And then the Dolphins, talk about doing good with picks that you don't have. They only had 4 picks, and they killed it on their day 2 picks. I feel like Cam Smith was my number 5 corner, I believe. I had him at 29 on my big board. You get him at 51. Again, not really a position of need because you have Ramsey and Howard, but you can't pass up on value like that. So they get an A. They might actually end up using him at safety a little bit, so watch out for that. And then Devon Achane from A&M, super fast, is like world-class level sprinter. So you had that with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Raheem Mostert. You have the fastest team probably ever, weapons-wise, for Tua. So just get another weapon guy. Now they can run like – they just have so many running backs that are decent. I don't think Achane can be a true bell cow, just his size, and he just doesn't – he has decent third down ability, but he's just not doesn't break many tackles, but speed-wise, he's out of this world. And then nothing value-wise I really love in day 3, but their day 2 picks killed it for me. And then the Jets, this was a weird draft. So you get Will McDonald, and the problem with Will McDonald is he's small, and you had Nolan Smith on the board, who Nolan Smith was my number 13 prospect, and Will McDonald was number 42. So I would have easily taken Nolan Smith, and you probably could have traded down with a guy like Will McDonald and got him at 25, 30 and added some value. But fit-wise, I kind of like it. They needed a pass rusher, and with McDonald, he wasn't used right at Iowa State. He was used as like a 4 tech, as like a D lineman at 240. So they're going to use him as a 9 tech, running off the edge like Nolan Smith was used at Georgia. So I guess I see the vision that maybe if Nolan Smith was used as a 4 tech like McDonald was, he wouldn't put up numbers either. So I see it. Needs to develop some moves, and he's not as good of a run defender as Nolan Smith is either. But can't totally knock him. They got their guy. I think he'll do good things pass rushing. And I can see the vision a little bit more than when it actually happened, but I'm still not a huge fan. And then Joe Tippmann, he's a solid center. I just think it was early, and you took him over John Michael Schmitz, who was my number 1 center in the class, my number 31 prospect overall. You took him many picks before Schmitz, and Tippmann's just not as good, so that's why I gave him a C+. Abanikanda, I really like that pick from them. In the 4th round, he'll be a very good running back to be behind Brees, give a good little change of pace, good contact balance from Abanikanda. And then Zach Kuntz was a solid pick in the 7th, could provide value for them as a tight end. And then the Patriots, they had my steal the 1st round for sure with Christian Gonzalez. As I said earlier, number 4 prospect overall, and you get him at 17. You traded down from 14 to 17 and got the number 4 prospect in the class. Was it a huge position of need? No, but taking best player available and plugging him in a Belichick defense, can't really complain about that. So loved that pick. So fluid. His hips are just like butter, fast, length. I don't know why he fell to 17. He's just so good. Keon White, I like the pick. He was my number 46 prospect, so fits right in value-wise, and it's a good fit, so that's why they got an A. Just huge. The he is a boomer bust guy and he's 25. That's the only problem I have with him. By the time he fully develops, he's going to be old. But I think again, you put a guy like that in Belichick's defense. If he develops fully, he's going to be scary. He's 275, looks bigger than that, and speed to power is great. Just needs to develop some moves, kind of like Miles Murphy. And then Marte Mapu at 76, just a versatile guy, can play safety, can play linebacker, can play in the box. I really like that. Again, the more versatile guys you put in Belichick's defense, the better you're going to be. And I think this was a perfect landing spot for Mapu. Maybe a little bit of a reach, but this is around where I had him, um, early third or mid third. But I love the fit here. And then in the on day 3, they got. I didn't like how early they took the kicker. That was bad. But they got Keishon Butte, who was very bad in the pre-draft prospect, had some stuff going on at LSU that teams questioned, and then tested horribly. Jumped only like 25 inches and like couldn't run. His 40 was horrible, but he was a 5-star prospect and did pretty well at LSU. So there is hope there, and you got him in the 5th round. So if he doesn't work, whatever. But I liked that value there for them. He could have easily been a 3rd or 4th round pick just off of talent. But anyways, they get an A. They had one of my favorite draft classes, Christian Gonzalez, steal of the 1st round for sure. We go to the Eagles, and they get an A+. I think this is widely considered the best draft class. I would probably have it at 1, but it's close with the Steelers. They get Jalen Carter at 9, which is just they did have to give up a 4th to get him, but you get the number 1 prospect in the class at number 9 after just coming off a Super Bowl appearance. That's ridiculous. Jalen Carter, pair him with Nolan Smith, and who the guy they had, Jordan Davis from last year. That defensive line is getting scary with Brandon Graham still there. Josh Sweat. It's just the list goes on of pass rushers they have, and Jalen Carter, my number 1 prospect, just for a guy to move as well laterally at his size, get the burst off the ball. I think he's just special. I get the off-field concerns, but he'll have people to rein him in that he knows there. And especially a guy like Nolan Smith, who was the obvious leader of that Georgia team. You get him to pair with Jalen Carter so they know each other. I just love that fit. Nolan Smith, as I said earlier, my number 13 prospect, I know he's small, but his bend is Von Miller-like. He just has the best bend of anyone in this class by far, and his moves are developing. He had a 20% pressure rate last year, which was one of the highest in college football. The sack numbers weren't there, probably, mainly due to his injury. And as a run defender for his size, he is very good. So I love Nolan Smith. That pick, again, that defensive line is going to be insane. Tyler Steen, Sidney Brown, nothing huge there. I don't know. You get good value. Sidney Brown's going to be solid. Tyler Steen can be a good rotational piece once Lane Johnson retires, but that value wasn't great for me. And then Khalil Ringo, who was he was in my top 50 on my big board. I really like Ringo. He is just huge and moves very well in a straight line, but side to side and having to track receivers, he's not very good at. But I think they might throw him at safety, which you get a guy who's 6'2" and can run in the 4.3s. You put him at safety, he's decent at diagnosing zone. So I think that's a huge steal, and you get him on day 3. You did have to trade, I think, next year's 3rd to get a 4th, which I don't love, but you get great value out of that, getting a guy who could easily have been a early 2nd round pick, in my opinion. So Eagles might have won this draft. We go to the Cowboys next. Mozzie Smith, not a huge fan of that pick. Going to be a good run stuffer, which they could use, but just doesn't bring much as a pass rusher, so B- for that pick. Luke Schoonmaker, I wasn't a huge fan of that pick. He's a decent blocking tight end, but probably around 3 or 4 value, and you take him at 58. Just doesn't have the receiving upside you'd like, and they needed that with Dalton Schultz leaving, so C. And then DeMarvion Overshown, I like that pick, a former 5-star out of Texas. Didn't perform a ton at Texas, but has the upside to be a great off-ball linebacker. So I like that pick. And then Eric Scott, not a great. I mean, he'll be solid, I think. And then Deuce Vaughn. Um, Obviously, he was drafted by his dad. If you didn't see that, that was cool. But he's so tiny, but he's so hard to tackle because he's only 5'5" and he can move around, dance a little bit. So I like that at 212. A little change of pace from Tony Pollard. So he could get some time. Could definitely be a good special teams guy, good returner. So Cowboys get a B minus. Didn't kill it on the draft, but didn't do anything horrible. And then we go to the Giants, who most people probably wouldn't say won this draft, but they might be my favorite one. They get Deonte Banks at 24. They did have to trade up one spot, which you never really love to do. They had to give up value to go up one spot, but they get Deonte Banks, who was my number 4 corner in the draft. Good length, good speed, needs a little cleanup on the technique, but he has everything you want, and his hips are fluid, which is a good sign for his technique developing in the future. But we'll need some coaching there, but falling to 24, that's great value. Then you get John Michael Schmitz at 57. Center was a position in need, and you get my number 31 prospect in the class. You get the best center in the class at 57. Great pick. And then Jalen Hyatt, you did have to trade up, I think, 4 slots to get him, but Jalen Hyatt was my number 27 prospect, just so fast, could take the top off the defense, and just the best deep threat in this class, which I think the Giants can use. They could have used any sort of receiver, and they get a top 5 receiver in this class. In my opinion, they get him at 73, so great value there. Eric Gray can actually provide some good value. Played with Jalen Hyatt at Tennessee, actually, but Eric Gray could get some time backing up Saquon, but you obviously didn't need a running back. But outside of that, they didn't do a ton on day 4 to impress me, but A+ in this draft because of those first 3 days. And then we go to the Commanders. This pick at 16 killed me. If you're going to go corner, why do you not go the best corner in the class with Christian Gonzalez? You take Emmanuel Forbes, who's my number 40 prospect. He's a playmaker. All-time record in the NCAA for pick sixes. But the technique is not there. He's so small. He's like 170. I can't get behind that pick. D+. You took him over Gonzalez. Can't get behind that. And then you take Jatavius Martin, who just doesn't blow me away with anything. You took him early. He's versatile. He's big, but his athleticism is just lacking. And you already took Emmanuel Forbes. I don't think you really needed a DB that badly. And you could have traded up a couple picks and potentially got Brian Branch, but that's whatever. And then Ricky Stromberg, I like that pick. They have a good center in Chase Roulier, but you can always use backups, and he'll be a solid guard. They get good value there at 97. But a pick I really like through him, Chris Rodriguez Jr., probably the best power back in this draft class. And you pair him with a Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson. They just have a good core over there. They have 3 true backs who can play, and Chris Rodriguez will definitely contribute for them in the future. But overall, as a draft, that I have to give them a C because of that Forbes pick over Gonzalez. I can guarantee you they're going to regret that in the future. We go to the Jaguars. They had a lot of day 3 picks, but their first pick, Anton Harrison, just a solid pass protector. He's going to be great day 1 as a pass protector. His run blocking isn't anything great, but it's not horrible. He was my number 20 prospect, and you get him at 27 at a position that the problem is they didn't really need it because Walker Little is startable and Cam Robinson is definitely startable, and he's suspended, I think, 6 games. So once Cam Robinson comes back, it's going to be weird what they do. But hopefully Anton Harrison just outplays Walker Little, and you don't have to worry about it. So I like that pick. And then Brenton Strange, I really was not a fan of this pick. Round 4 value to me, lacks the blocking, lacks true pop. And he's a solid just possession tight end, but nothing worthy of a second round pick. And he's kind of similar to Ingram in that he's a good receiver but a bad blocker. So I don't think it really helps you run 12 personnel or anything because neither of them can block. So it just was weird to me. And then Bigsby, I like that. ETN's a good running back, but they kind of needed a little change of pace guy. Bigsby, good speed, good size, can break tackles, just does everything solid. I like him out of Auburn. And then a big steal for me, Antonio Johnson out of Texas A&M. He was number 47 on my prospects, and you get him at 160. Came Can't complain about that. He is like Brian Branch Light to me. He's not as good of a run defender, but he's solid in run defense. Can play safety, can play in the box, can play slot corner. I like him at slot corner the most, but he can play all three. Kind of move him around. He doesn't. He's not the fastest. He's not the biggest, but he just does everything well. And I like him on tape. He's a playmaker. So I liked that pick of Antonio Johnson a lot, but nothing else in day three that really stood out to me. Parker Washington will be solid, I think. That's about it. And then the Titans, I loved their draft. Peter Skoronski was my number 9 prospect. They needed a tackle, needed a guard. I don't know where he'll end up. They'll probably start him at tackle, but I have a feeling later down the line he'll get moved to guard just because those arms are so short. I think they're the second percentile for tackles, so just not going to work out there. But Skoronski, I loved that pick. And then you get Will Levis, who most people thought you would have to take at 11. You get him at 33. They had to trade up for him, but who cares? You get a quarterback that definitely has the potential to be a top 10 guy in the league, a starter, and you get him at 33. Great value there. Tyjae Spears, obviously you have Derrick Henry. He might get traded, but Tyjae Spears is just a solid back. Bigsby and Achane were there, who I like better, but it's kind of preference with those guys. He's just not as versatile as either of those two, but he can break tackles a little more and has a little more speed than Bigsby, I think, but not huge. And then Jalen Duncan was a big steal. I think he can be a contributor this year. I would have taken him in probably the 3rd round out of Maryland, and you get him in the 5th, maybe 6th. And that was just great value to me and at a position of need. So they get an A overall. Good draft from them. The Indianapolis Colts are next, and I think they were my winners of the draft. I loved what the Colts did. You get Anthony Richardson, who was my number 3 quarterback. You get him at 3, and I think the big thing about that is you didn't have to trade up. Many people thought you would have to trade up to 3 to get him, and you didn't. So you get AR-15, who will be a great fit with Steichen, just kind of like Jalen Hurts, but more athletic with a better arm. I can't wait to see what Richardson will do in the league. And then you get another freak athlete, Julius Brents, tall, fast, lengthy. Technique's not totally there with Brents, but just kind of fits the mold of Richardson. They got a big, tall, lanky guy. Same thing with Blake Freeland in the 3rd or 4th. Same thing as Adetomiwa Adebawore. I think he ran the fastest 40 for a D end or something like that. Just freaky. But all these guys, they're not there yet, obviously, but they will get there. And if one of them truly hits and reaches their full potential, they will be scary, especially if it's Richardson, because his full potential is obviously sky high. And then Josh Downs, I loved that pick. You need a reliable target for Richardson, and they don't have that. Michael Pittman's solid, Alec Pierce is solid, but they're both outside guys who can't truly separate. But Josh Downs is a great separator, just kind of tiny, but can be a great slot guy and just a security blanket for Anthony Richardson, which he will need. So we go next to the Texans, and many people are going to say they killed this draft. I don't see it with them. C.J. Stroud was my number 1 quarterback, and you get him at 2. I loved that. I'm glad they didn't take Tyree Wilson or whatever that crap people were saying. But then at 3, the Will Anderson trade, I am not a big fan of because you gave up next year's first and you gave up your own. You could have given up Cleveland's, but you give up your own, which could easily be a top 5 pick. And next year's class is looking, as of now, to be way better than this year's. And if that ends up being a Marvin Harrison, ends up being a Caleb Williams, you are really, really going to be kicking yourself over that. So didn't love that, but you get 2 top 5 talents, so they're going to be good. Will Anderson, I really like him. I love CJ Stroud's my number 1 quarterback, and you get number 1 edge. You get 2 huge positions of need for you, and you get the number 1 guys in the class. So can't be too bad on that front. And then Juice Scruggs, I didn't love that they had to trade up for him. He was 3rd round value, and you took him late 2nd, so not horrible, but just didn't love it. You had to trade up, and you got a guy that you didn't really need, and it was a reach. And then Tank Dell, you took him over Hyatt and Downs, and he just doesn't pop to me. He's so small. He's 165, ran a 4.5, and you traded up to get him just because I think CJ Stroud told them that he wanted him, which, I mean, whatever, makes CJ happy, but you could have taken Downs and Hyatt, who were, in my opinion, way better than Dell, but, we'll see how that works. I don't love that pick. Then Xavier Hutchinson is good value there in the 6th. He could have easily probably gone fourth, fifth potentially, and you get him in the sixth. I think he has potential to contribute, especially because their receiving class is horrible. So we go to the Chiefs, and their first round pick, I think they just wanted to impress the fans. They should have traded back. Once Nolan Smith left the board, you could have got in Uzama probably 10, 20 picks later, but you took him because it was in KC, so I don't love that. Rashee Rice, good size and speed, and I think has the potential if they develop him to be a true outside receiver, which again Hyatt, Downs, those guys don't really have, but I would have obviously taken Hyatt and Downs over him. And then Wanya Morris, I just not a huge fan of that pick. I would have taken DeJuan Jones over him, but he could contribute. I really would have liked the DeJuan Jones pick because you just lost Orlando Brown, and he was solid for you. And kind of the same player there, but can't and just not a fan of this Chiefs draft. I'm giving this C. Um, the Chargers, the Quentin Johnson pick's getting a lot of hate. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. You could have taken Zay Flowers, who I would have liked more, but Quentin Johnston, just solid out of TCU. He has the most potential to be a true one, I think, in this class. But I just don't think he'll get there because he has the after catch ability, but the catching is such a problem to me. For a guy that big, he just body catches everything. He needs to use his hands and high point the ball, and he just doesn't do it. And as a route runner, he needs a lot of work. He just doesn't have the route tree that you'd like for a true X. So I think he'll be in the slot, just kind of after catch ability, a guy there, which I don't love how they're going to use him. And then Tuli Tuapatalo from USC. A pretty refined guy. He can play day one. He can rotate in with Mac and Bosa, but I just don't think the upside is there for him to be anything super, super special. And then Dayon Henley, a very old prospect, but I think he's going to be solid. I think he's maybe the best pass coverage linebacker in this draft. He's just very good in zone. But again, he's like 27, so I don't know what the true upside is there. But as a pass coverage guy, he can be really good in zone day one, which I like. And then they didn't do much. Max Duggan, I mean, they didn't really take much that impressed me late in the draft. So they get a B minus, just a solid draft. The Raiders, I liked their draft. Tyree Wilson was my number 7 prospect. You get him at 7. Definitely wasn't a position of need with Crosby and Chandler Jones, but they're going to be insane off the edge with all 3 of them now. Tackles are just not going to be able to defend those 3 rotating in and out, so it's going to be special. And then Michael Mayer, love that pick, my number 1 tight end, and you just lost Waller, and you get the best tight end in the class. Not as dynamic as a player as Waller, but doesn't have the injury concerns and is a way better blocker. And then Byron Young, this is the one from Alabama, not Tennessee. He has good burst, or he's good in run defense, but he just lacks the pass rush that you'd like. But they kind of needed some run defense in there. They struggled defending the run last year, and you get Wilson and Byron Young, who are both great run defenders. And then Trey Tucker was not a fan of that pick. Super fast, will be a good returner, but you're not taking a good returner in the 3rd round. Christopher Smith was a solid pick. Tested horribly, but just good on tape. I think he has the instincts to be a playable player and can be versatile, play safety for you, play in the slot. So I like that pick there for the Raiders. We go to the Broncos, who, if you did not know, are my favorite team. And obviously with the Russ trade and trading Bradley Chubb, or trading for Sean Payton, I mean, they didn't have many picks to begin with, and they actually traded more away, so they lost picks in this draft, but I kind of like what they did. Marvin Mims was not a fan when it happened. You could have taken Hyatt, who I would have loved more, but Mims is kind of the KJ Hamler replacement, and KJ just can't catch a break. I don't think it's going to work for him. Just keeps getting injured. So you get a guy who can truly take the top off a defense, is a great deep threat, and can be a decent slot receiver if you need him to be, but I like Judy in that role more. So I give him B minus. Don't love the value. You traded up for him too, which I don't think you needed to do, but I would have taken Hyatt, but I get the idea with Mims. But wide receiver just wasn't a position of need, in my opinion. But you can't hate it. You need Russ. You need weapons for Russ to throw to, so can't hate it. Drew Sanders, Very good value here. Good blitzer. Reminds me kind of Baron Browning coming in, where he's kind of more of an off-ball guy, and they kind of had him blitz a lot in college, but can develop into potentially being an actual pass rusher. But he's versatile. He can pass rush. He can play the run. I like that pick. You get good value there. Here's my number 2 linebacker in the class, and you get him at 67. And then Riley Moss, you traded up for him, and you gave up next year's third or next year's fourth, one of the two, which I really did not like. Why are you giving up picks next year for a guy that you probably didn't even need to trade up for? But Broncos really seem to like him, and I think he'll end up playing safety more than corner, which I don't think. I mean, they have Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson, and uh, I just didn't think they needed a safety, but can't. I don't hate it, but then JL Skinner, I really like that pick. Probably will end up playing more like oversized linebacker because he doesn't have the speed. But JL Skinner, just a physical guy, great tackler, and then Alex Forsyth was not a great pick to me. So B for them. They did good with the picks they had, I felt. 49ers here, Jair Brown, they traded up for him. He has really good instincts, but he just doesn't have the like explosiveness and athleticism to really be anything truly special. I think he'll just at best be like a little rotation guy. Maybe you could put him in the box, but he's not big enough for that either. I'm not a huge fan of that pick, but I like how he plays. Just I don't think it's in the cards for him to be a star or anything. And then I hated the Jake Moody pick. You're taking a kicker at 99. The last kicker taken on day 2 was Roberto Aguayo, and he was out of the league in 2 years. So I gave him an F. That was one of 2 Fs I gave out. That was horrible. And then Cameron Latu, he's just kind of weak. Not he has good form blocking, but he just doesn't bring much because he's kind of tiny. And he just doesn't have the explosiveness. And you have Kittle. I just didn't really think that was a need pick. But not horrible. I like the Robert Beal pick. He has some upside, and then Ronnie Bell has some upside out of Michigan there. But I gave him a C minus. Not a great draft to me. The Seahawks, they did good here. Devin Witherspoon was my number 2 corner. A little bit high, I think. You could have taken Gonzalez, and you could have taken Jalen Carter, which is what I would have done. But can't hate it. Witherspoon just flies around the field. And I really like how he plays. JSN, great pick. Going into the draft, you wouldn't have said receivers a need, but it's growing on me. Lockett and DK are outside guys and not providing much over the middle of the field. Um, and JSN's just the perfect slot guy. Gino's going to be able to hit him. I mean, that's going to be a great connection. And Lockett's also getting up there in age, so JSN could be the next number 2, and probably will be the number 2 as Lockett. I think JSN will be better than Lockett. And then Derek Hall, just not a huge fan of this pick. I would have taken Keon White, but he converts speed to power pretty well. Has good length, so not horrible. And Zach Charbonnet, I like him as a prospect, but you have Kenneth Walker. I mean, I get you need multiple running backs, but seemed a little early for a pick for a position you didn't need. And Kenny McIntosh in the 7th was a good pick to me. Mike Morris has some potential off the edge out of Michigan, but nothing really stood out on day 3 a ton. So B plus for them. I love the JSN pick though, one of my favorites of the draft. And then the LA Rams here. They took Steve Avila with their first pick, who is solid. He was my number 35 prospect. You get him at 36. Position of need, B plus. Just good drafting there from them. Byron Young, this one is the one from Tennessee. Good burst and bend, just lacks power and really technique. Needs a lot of development, but has good upside. And then Kobe Turner probably was going to be a 5th or 6th round pick, and you took him at 89 when you have Aaron Donald. Not really a position of need. Didn't love that. Stetson Bennett was a reach as well. I like the Warren McClendon pick. He has some potential. Travius Tomlinson was a great pick. I thought he was going to go round 3 for sure, but he's just so small. But as a slot guy, he can be great. And then Zach Evans, I love that pick. Zach Evans will definitely play for them. I think he has the potential to be better than Akers. Just fast, big, can receive. I love Zach Evans. He should have gone earlier than the 6th. And then Jason Taylor and DeJuan Johnson both have some potential to be contributors for them, especially Jason Taylor, the 2nd. I like what I saw from him, but The Rams get a B, just a solid draft. They did good with their day 3 picks, and they got a lot of people on just in the draft as a whole. I think they came away with the most players of anyone in the draft, and they got pretty good value out of the players they did get. Cardinals now, they had a good day 1 as they traded back from 3 to 12 and then traded back up to 6 and still got the guy they would have taken at 3 in Paris Johnson Jr., an offensive tackle out of Ohio State who just has all the potential to be great, but on tape wasn't totally there, but he was my number 1 tackle. I think he'll get there in the NFL. He's just too big and too athletic to not get there. Just needs to add a little strength to his lower half and learn how to punch at all. It's bad watching him, but good run blocker day 1, and you get that with Kyler. He'll be a good protector for him for a while. B.J. Ojulari, I love that fit. Reminds me a lot of a Harold Landry type. Just good off the edge, good burst, good acceleration. He was my number 43 prospect. You get him at 41, but the scheme fit is really good in Jonathan Gannon's defense. And then Garrett Williams, good technique, very good in zone, but just lacks a little long speed. But in a zone scheme, I think he can be really good, which is what Jonathan Gannon likes to run a little bit. So I like that pick. And then Michael Wilson, a very big receiver, good after the catch, good height, good speed, but he's just a little raw to me. So he could develop and be a good target for Kyler, but I don't totally see it happening. And then Owen Papoa out of Auburn, I really like that pick, was the most athletic linebacker in this class at the Combine, and you get him in the 5th round. Good value from them. And then the Buccaneers up next. They got Kalijah Kancey at 19. I thought that was a reach. Very, very good pass rusher coming through the middle, but he's just so tiny he can't play run defense. And I think it's just going to keep him off the field on the NFL level. He just won't be able to get out there on all 3 downs. And when he is out there, teams are going to know, okay, let's just run at him. So don't love that, but if he can add a little weight and improve as a run defender, man, he's so good as a pass rusher. He could be scary. And then Cody Mauch, Mock, I really love that pick. Versatile, can play guard, can play tackle, and just really good value there. I like that pick for them. They needed O-line, and you get a versatile guy that can rotate, that can be very good. And then Yaya Diaby, very athletic, ran in the 4.5s, just lacks technique, but good upside there. I like that pick. Edge out of Louisville, and then Trey Palmer. He's the only one on that day 3 that I really think has the potential to be anything. But yeah, they got a B. They did solid. Don't love the Kancey pick. Love the Mauch pick, and Diaby has some upside. So we go to the Panthers now. They obviously had the first pick with Bryce Young. I gave it A because I would have taken Stroud, but you got the number 2 quarterback in the class, and they were so close value-wise to me. So Bryce, if he can stay healthy, will be better than Stroud. I worry with his size if that's going to be a thing that is able to happen. Jonathan Mingo, a little early to me for him, but good fit. I think you watch him and you see the A.J. Brown comparison, but I just don't think he'll be A.J. Brown because it's just not realistic. He didn't put up great numbers at Ole Miss, which is a little worrisome, but their offense was kind of weird. They run a weird RPO, like running back heavy scheme, so I'm not too worried about that. But he has the size, and I think that's why he went over a guy like Downs or Hyatt, because he has that prototypical like wide receiver 1A size. And then DJ Johnson, I didn't love that pick very much. He has good size and speed. He has upside, but you traded up for a guy that probably you could have got in the 4th, and the technique is so far off with him. It's just going to take a while for him to develop, and you have decent pass rushers already with Brian Burns there. So I don't know if that was a huge need pick with your 3rd rounder. And then Jamie Robinson has some potential, I'd say, but nothing. They only had 2 picks on day 3 because of all the trades they made. So nothing huge there. B+ for them. But they got their quarterback of the future. And then the Saints, they get Brian Bresee, who I like. He obviously has sky-high potential, just didn't really show much at Clemson, but you get him in the NFL scheme, and you hope he can progress into something because the Saints' D-line was pretty bad last year. So they know the help they can get. That's why they went Isaiah Foskey at 40. He was my 50th prospect, so a little bit of a reach to me, but not a huge reach. He The upside I don't think is totally there because he's kind of tiny and not the best run defender and not doesn't have the moves. I mean, he's solid, he's fast, he has good bend, but I just don't know if he'll ever be a true great edge. But you get him in the second round, so not bad. And then Keandre Miller, I would have taken A-Chain, I would have taken Bigsby, I would have taken Tyjae Spears. And you didn't really need a running back with Kamara there. I guess if you're thinking you're not going to pay Kamara, um, I don't know, it just felt weird to go running back. Jake Haener, I like that pick. He was my number 6 quarterback, and you get him. I think he could definitely play some snaps if Derek Carr gets hurt. He can be a reliable backup for sure. And then A.T. Perry in the 6th. I thought he was 5th round value, so um, pretty good draft for them. Nothing crazy though, value wise. And then the Atlanta Falcons. I love Bijan was my number 3 prospect, so taking him at 8 is tough to give a C, but you could have easily traded back to 15, I think, and gotten Bijan. So you go running back at 8, it's just never going to be a great grade, but I think he'll put up numbers in the league. Um, I just don't think taking running back at 8 is necessarily smart, but you doubled down on the running back. On the run game and went Matthew Bergeron, who is a great run blocking guard. He played tackle at Syracuse, but I think as a guard, he'll be a great run blocker, but pass protection, he's just going to struggle at the NFL level. Zach Harrison has some good upside out of Ohio State, but didn't show much there. Clark Phillips was a good pick. I thought he should have gone day 3 or round 3. You get him in the 4th, so good value there. But the Bijan picks just really bringing this down, I think. So C plus. I like what they did. I like that with taking Bijan, you double down and go for a run blocker, but nothing blew me away in this draft. But that's going to wrap up this video. I had the Colts, Steelers, and Eagles as clear winners of this draft, and the Lions and the Falcons as probably the worst drafts in this class. But again, these players haven't proven anything in the NFL, so the Lions could easily have the best draft class. We'll just have to wait and see. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.